Welcome back to the Super Hornet Podcast. My name's Evan Hill. I got a special guest today. It's James Plowright, British Buzz on Twitter. He's also a writer for Culture, and he's the host of the Charlotte Hornets on SI podcast on YouTube. And are you on Spotify as well?
Yep, on everything. Podcasts
on
are
everything.
everywhere. Can't get away from
them. James is one of the best content creators around the Charlotte Hornets, and I've been following him for a long time, and now he's on the show, and it's really exciting. So welcome, James.
No problem, and thank you for having me on. I'd like to say you have the second best hat in Hornets fandom land after Sombrero Man.
Yeah,
the little pink hat is the second best one after that. It's tough to beat Hector, but it's up there.
And he's got so many. He rotates them too. They're they're different theme nights. He has one that lights up. He's got the Charlotte FC hat too. They have the events right now where the FC season just kicked off, so he'll go from there.
I'm a little worried about losing Hector to Charlotte FC here. And the Hornets' lack of success on the court isn't helping that battle, I don't think.
Yeah, I think if the Hornets are better in March, maybe it won't happen as much. FC might get more wins than the Hornets this year, which is crazy to say. Welcome in. And a big proprietor in the reason that we're not doing so well right now. It's just we're not healthy and we don't have the right pieces around, and maybe people are thinking we're building around the wrong core piece in LaMelo Ball. I personally don't feel that way. I want to start with that by saying that. But a lot of people in the fandom, there's a lot of LaMelo fans who don't want him in Charlotte anymore. And a lot of executives are looking at LaMelo Ball. It's been rumored. Hoops Hype had the article come out where a lot of executives plan on looking at him after the Luka trade looking forward to this offseason to look to maybe trade for him. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think you're right, firstly, in terms of it feels for the first time the prevailing opinion of fans might be to trade LaMelo Ball. And really, I'd say it's the first time, like it's normal to speak about it now, whereas even 12 months ago, the start of the season, if you led a podcast with should the Hornets trade LaMelo Ball, people would have rolled their eyes and scoffed and gone, what? And yeah, absolutely. So I do think the fan opinion has changed. The article from Hoops Hype was, I mean, for me, it's just saying the obvious. I like Mike Scotto. He's come on our podcast. I don't blame him for writing it because it did well and it popped
very well.
And like a lot of things with LaMelo Ball's name attached to it, do well, right? We know that by now.
Yeah.
But it was all kind of like people on other teams speculating, thinking, and do you think other teams around the league look at the Hornets situation, look at LaMelo Ball and go, yeah, we'd monitor it if he became available? Of course they would. So there was nothing really groundbreaking there. I don't think that changes the way how I think, now I think the team are really proactively looking at something. It was just kind of like league guys speculating, chatting. And when you have the Hornets' lack of success on the court, when you have LaMelo Ball missing out and being an all-star, him being now in year 5 in Charlotte, all these things come together. It's this obvious place that it's going to be a question. Now, whether they do it or not, that's different. But for it to be a discussion topic, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the article basically said, breaking news, professional athlete wants to win, and other teams want better players. Like, that's just basically what it said. I will say, I think I wrote about this. I don't know. I haven't seen an article if you wrote about it. But it makes more sense now than ever, like you were saying, just because he has had a better season health-wise. I think a lot of the reason he's been sitting out, I've said this before, is the fact that everybody else is hurt. So the season's already kind of over. We're not making the playoffs for the play-in. Everyone else is out. If you're feeling any kind of soreness, and especially if you're on the road, just sit out. I noticed if he misses games for non ankle sprain or whatever injuries, they're almost always on the road. I think he tries to play in Charlotte if he can, but I think a lot of the times he's been sitting out, it's just been because everybody else is out. Why am I going to go in there and risk it? Which isn't, I don't know if that's quite the mindset we need to have for him, but with this season, I kind of understand it. It's just one of those things. I don't know what's going to happen anymore now. I always felt pretty confident that he was going to stay in Charlotte, but you look, the ownership, the front office, they didn't sign him to that contract. They adopted, they took over the team with that contract already in place. And, maybe they're looking into this draft. It depends on where we land in the draft. But, I mean, let's say we get the second overall pick. If we take Dylan Harper, there's a chance that LaMelo Ball is gone. There's a chance that they're like, this is our point guard. We can go, we trade LaMelo, get pieces to build around in the future. There's some teams who have some real assets that could trade for LaMelo. I mean, you look at the Houston Rockets, their team. You got Reed Shepherd out there. You got they have the Nets and the Suns pick next year, which is just those could be crazy draft capital next year that could be sent out for them. You got the Magic. They have the young core there. It's just it makes now more than ever makes sense.
So I understand, and I think like if they did move on from LaMelo Ball, I think things have changed. Not even LaMelo. Take LaMelo's performances out of this. Take his health concerns out of this. We thought the last 2 seasons that the team are really a playing level team in terms of talent. They just haven't had the health.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely what, 2 seasons ago, that's definitely what had happened. Then you're thinking, well, then last season it's bringing in the Miles Bridges back. And again, LaMelo Ball was out for a long time. Mark Williams out. There's been excuses, right? And yes, there have been injuries this year, but we have seen Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball on the court together as a 3. And it's looking a much further away. And every single thing the team have done in terms of team building has made the runway longer for this team to be a playoff team, not shorter. And LaMelo Ball has 4 years left on his contract after this one. It might take 3 or 4 years from now for the Hornets to be actually a playoff team again. And then at that point, you've kind of wasted the valuable years of LaMelo's contract career in Charlotte on a rebuilding team. And does that make sense? So I think some of this isn't even about LaMelo. It's about the runway and the path the Charlotte Hornets are on and the timeline that they're on just might not match up with LaMelo Ball anymore. And on top of that, LaMelo has to look at this and going, like, why was I not an all-star this year? Well, because the team record, right? Yeah. If the Hornets were in the play-in, if they were the Pistons at the time, okay, in their position, he probably would have been an all-star. And he knows that, and he looks at that. And, like, he can say he doesn't mind, but it's clear that, like, he doesn't want to go away and do that. So it could just be that both teams are maybe wanting to be at a different point of where the best thing is for this team and the franchise to build a sustained winner.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely this offseason is going to be the most pivotal offseason in the franchise's like recent history, I would argue, because you have some potentially valuable assets going into this offseason. So if you did want to improve the roster, you have that 2027 Mavericks top 2 protected pick, which, I mean, Kyrie Irving was the best player on their team, and he just tore his ACL at 32 years old. I mean, I love Kyrie, and I hope he comes back better than ever. I don't think he will, though. You don't see guys come back at 32 years old from an ACL tear, especially people who rely so heavily on their athleticism like him, come back and contribute the same, which is heartbreaking because he's one of my favorite players in the league. And then you have Anthony Davis, who's the youngest person of their big 3 out there now at 31 years old, who is constantly injured. He's probably going to be out the rest of the season from what rumors have said. And then Klay Thompson, I just watched him airball a layup yesterday or 2 days ago, and that's obviously not his whole game, but the Mavericks are on a downward trajectory and we have their pick. And also we have the 2027 Heat pick. It's lottery protected, but after that year, the next year it's unprotected. And they just traded away their star. I mean, he was older, Jimmy Butler's older, and Miami could re-up, but optics-wise, that pick is pretty valuable right now. So if you were to look at trading those picks, they might be at an all-time value this offseason. Do we upgrade the roster? I mean, we talk about, other teams looking at, the Hornets because they're doing bad. The Hornets look other places because they're bad. Do they look at like a Larry Markkinen? They look at a Zion Williamson, with trading a Miles Bridges contract that's descending and obviously tradable. There are so many decisions that have to be made this offseason, and the direction will be chosen. The direction has to be chosen this offseason, or the team will be just stuck in this loop.
Well, I think the direction's already been chosen, and that's for them to be bad again next year. I think if they could maybe trade those picks, but I think if they traded those picks, it would maybe be to like move to get a second lottery pick in this year's draft or something of that nature, rather than moving it to get an impact player. You don't trade, for Yusuf Nurkic and his bad contract for next season, like without kind of already knowing that you're not really that bothered about going into next offseason and upgrading talent. And we talk about the 2025 draft supposed to be good. 2026 draft supposed to be even better. Like the top 3, 4, 5 guys in that draft, that could be, from what I've heard, the early returns on that could be one of the better drafts in the last decade or two. So I think that's why you look at this, right? That I think next year it's already booked in. I think they're going to be another rebuilding team. Maybe not as bad as this year. I didn't think the plan this year was to be the worst team in the NBA, which they basically are right now. But to be, somewhere in that 25 to 35 win range, and to show progress and excitement, but ultimately still have probably be like the Hawks from last year, right? With an outside chance of going up the draft lottery, and something like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if we get 30 wins next year, is it bad to say that sounds good to me? Like at this point, it's just heartbreaking that we're, we've got 35
what we've watched
wins
the last 3 years, then that would be a roaring success. That's how it would
wins the last
feel.
2 years.
It wouldn't be, but it was how it would feel from a visual perspective.
Yeah, just like going to games and having them win. It would be nice. I was writing about the Hornets yesterday, and it was like they have a combined 35 wins last 2 seasons. That wouldn't have even made the play-in last year, which is just it's heartbreaking, and it sucks to watch. It sucks to see, and I feel like from what I've seen, at least optically online, is that a lot of season ticket holders aren't happy as well, and I think the ownership has to take that into account. I don't know if they will. But I just, maybe I'm just being a hopeful fan more than an analyst here. But I think moves will be made this offseason. And I think you bring up Yusuf Nurkic. I think a lot of the reasons that he was traded for was as an expiring deal next year that could be moved at the deadline if they can build his value up to a team who needs money in the offseason, kind of like how they traded Gordon Hayward, who retired right after that, just to give Oklahoma City some money to sign their star players or their core players. I mean, like you said, 35 wins isn't bad next year, which is, I hate that that's it. That's the state of our team. Yeah. But 35 wins, I mean, in the Eastern Conference, I think 35 wins you get you in the play-in this year, which is which is real.
I agree with you on that.
I just it's, and we talked about the last few years, like you were saying, injury concerns and injury luck is the reason we felt like we were out of the play-in last few years. I feel like there was that more than ever this year, because you look back at the last couple of years and we didn't have the bench like we do this year. It's like healthy bench like we did this year. I think Trey Mann and Grant Williams add so much, and losing them, you can feel that weight immediately. I think we were 6-9 at the start of the year before we lost Trey.
Well, I did some projections just recently about looking at the total games lost for the top 10 players last year versus this year, and there was some projection towards the end of the season, but generally the top 10 players in total are projecting to miss somewhere between 20 to 40 more games this year than they did last year. Now, the careful thing, and I've been saying this was a mistake of Mitch Kupchak for years, was Mitch Kupchak looked at that and said his end of season availability, like, we were just injured. And I think myself and others looked to it and that we were injured, and that's why it was really bad. But I can tell you, even if player X or Y or Z was back, that is not solving all this team's issues. And, there are bigger structural concerns on this roster makeup that need to be addressed for them to be an actual playoff caliber team. And I think the same this year. I think injuries are the reason it's so bad. I think even if they're fully healthy with Trey Mann, with Grant Williams, with Brandon Miller, I think they're still in that like Bulls range, Raptors range. I don't think they are, suddenly an exciting young team. I still think there's concerns there. Yeah,
definitely. There's definitely still concerns. I mean, I like Josh Green, probably more of a bench piece if I wanted to keep him on the roster. And his contract, do you really want to keep that as a bench piece on your roster? it's so funny that Mark Williams' trade was rescinded, and the fact that I didn't know how it would feel if Mark Williams got traded. Like, like you watch him on the team, like, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a core 4 member right there. And he got traded, and I was like, oh, I actually feel really good about this. I didn't think I'd feel good about this. And now he's back on the team, and now I'm like, dang, I kind of wanted him to be traded now, and it's a bummer.
Now he has this horrible filter wherever you watch the game, you went, damn it, that's why they traded him, right? That's like every time he makes a mistake or an error, that's what everyone thinks, and that's really got to have knocked his confidence and his self-doubt as well. Like it's a truly unprecedented and difficult position for a player to be in, and it's very unfortunate for both the player and the Hornets.
Yeah, I feel for Mark. It's a bummer. At least Dalton Knecht hasn't been playing very well recently too. Probably for the same reasons, to be fair. But watched a lot of Lakers game. I was up till it was 1:30 last night because the game went to overtime here on the eastern US. But he actually had a couple clutch shots last night. But this is the Hornets show. But no, I like Mark Williams. That could be a guy in theory that could be moved if you're trying to add draft capital again. I mean, I don't know how tanked his value is. I think with the Hornets at least threatening they didn't pursue anything, but it looked like the optics where they were threatening to pursue something. My how I read that report and everything was the Hornets were planning on doing it. The league said nothing will be done, but we'll look into it, because Adam Silver on the press conference said maybe we should look into, having a third party look at these things during the All-Star weekend. I remember he just did a press conference and talked about it. So I think the league was like, we're not gonna change the ruling, but we'll look at the rules, because it's something that's never really happened before, like at this scale. And I don't think a trade's ever been rescinded like that, going past the deadline, where nothing could be changed. So we'll have to see what happens, but maybe he'll just give us first overall pick this year. That'd be nice.
Yeah. To back onto your will Mark Williams be here and will he not, and to maybe move us into the LaMelo Ball trade conversation. I mean, one of the things that I've even considered is, what if you package LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams together in trade packages this offseason, right? So because Mark Williams is earning so little on his rookie scale deal, you add LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams together, you're still in at 40 million in salary, 42 million, which is less than one player makes in some regards. Yeah. And so and getting Mark Williams now, and then being able to extend him in the kind of world of first, second aprons, the world of cap inflexibility, that could be appealing to a team as well, because it would be a way to pair LaMelo Ball with a rim running center still. So that's another thing that I've even thought about when scribbling notes down on paper here, is actually maybe you pair them together and you get a much bigger and better trade package.
Yeah, that, or if you do look to upgrade the roster this offseason with Miles Bridges, the same thing. You could combine them, if you're looking to improve the roster. Either way, I think Mark Williams, his future is bleak in Charlotte, which is sad, because I do like Mark Williams, but it's what would you put a percentage on what percentage would you put that LaMelo Ball is on this roster next year? Would you put higher percentage, or?
I would probably go 55%. Yes.
That's lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think the problem with LaMelo is that the longer you hold him, the less years you have as a contract, and in some way, his value will go down.
Yeah.
One of the great things you get with LaMelo Ball, when you trade for LaMelo Ball, you have injury availability is a big negator, right? That's one thing that's going to knock off trade value. You've also got some worries maybe about play style, system fit. That's something that's probably going to knock off. You're not going to get any bonus value in terms of, because he's this incredible leader. He's just someone that people gravitate towards. He's not going to do that either. But what you do get, and that's what De'Aaron Fox didn't get, and what Luka Doncic didn't get, is he signed up for 4 more years on the rookie max. Luka Doncic, for example, he was going to sign, I think it was a $319 million supermax contract with the Dallas Mavericks.
Ridiculous contract.
That's why in some respect, it was going to be $69 million per year. It was going to be Dallas. LaMelo's on 40. Okay. Now, even Luka now, he's going to be at like 47, 48 million on average per year, whereas LaMelo's going to be at 40. So even though it's a max contract, not all max contracts are the same.
Yeah.
And having someone locked up that young on 40 million per year for another 4 years, that's something that you can like really, it's very stable and you can build around. So I think that is something that if you move him off season, you get that 4-year bounce that probably helps bring you back some value. The challenge is, like, even if they did finish second in the draft, like you said, and they draft Dylan Harper, you got to be dangerous to move. Just assume that guy's going to be good, right? Everyone thought Scoot Henderson was going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Turns out he's just like an average guard. And if you move LaMelo Ball for Dylan Harper and he's just another Scoot Henderson, then everyone's going, why did you not just wait a year and have Dylan Harper and LaMelo on the roster? 1, see what they look like together. 2, you can figure out, like, is this Harper kid legit? Is it going to translate? And go from there. And I think that's probably more likely. Yeah. But I do agree, for the reasons already discussed, I think a LaMelo Ball trade is now more likely than ever. And just the end of the season is leaving a really bad taste in my mouth. Like, his level of production has just really gone down, and he looks at times pretty defeated right now. And maybe that's too much prisoner of the moment. Like I say, these are games that do not matter much, and the franchise and LaMelo Ball knows that. But equally, he is someone, like, when the team isn't doing well, LaMelo Ball kind of like seems to go with that flow, rather than being the guy who like grabs the team by the ruff of its neck and starts to like pull people up with him and trying to like command the respect of other teams and players around the league. When things are good, LaMelo is good. When things are not good, and I don't think it's always like LaMelo Ball just mailing it in. I think sometimes he's he kind of is a go with the flow type player, and that's how I feel.
Definitely, and it's his production's also gone down significantly just because there's not as much weapons around him. I mean, he drives to the paint, 3 guys are coming at him. You know, he's getting doubled, or he's getting, you know, full court pressured at times, or met right as he crosses the half court line. I mean, the defense they can play on him because the team is so bad limits his production significantly. And I mean, like, if you're like, he is a go with the flow player, like you said. He is, you know, he wanes and flows with the way the team performs. And I think it is partially his play style. Like, when the team is winning games and he is taking, you know, 35-foot 3-pointers and they're going in, it's like, awesome, we're winning, and he's looks so cool. When he's taking 35-foot 3-point shoot, like 35-point 3-point shots, and they're missing and you're down by 25, it's like, why are we doing that? Can we just run an offense? Like, it's one of those things. I think it's optics and the way he plays. When you're winning, it looks a lot better than when you're losing. And for anybody, and for the way he plays, it's so significantly, you know, because he plays like pickup ball at times.
I think I liken LaMelo to like a shot of apple sours. It's like, it's sweet, it's tasty, it's fun, it's really quick. But like, if you drank apple sours all night, you would not be in a good way, and you'd get sick of it really quickly. And that's kind of how I feel about LaMelo Ball right now. And that's the feeling.
Yeah, maybe like Fireball too. You know, Fireball is a very similar thing growing up here. That's a good analogy. That's really funny, actually. No, I would probably give it a coin flip for a percentage chance, but I'm surprised. I don't know why I'm so surprised, because I feel similar that you said 55%, you know, that he's on the team next year.
I mean, the most difficult thing is you have to speak to your like business commercial manager and be like, so we're about to trade the only guy who sells tickets. It's the only guy anyone pays attention to on social media. It's like the only guy who really has relevance nationally. We're about to get rid of that guy. Like, that's the biggest problem. That's like the biggest issue, is more on like the business side than actually, I think, probably like on the basketball side of where it comes to like, oh, this is good value deal. And that is the real world. Owners do care about that stuff much more so than fans who only care about product on the court.
Yeah. And it is frustrating as a fan of the team separately, just how everyone talks so poorly on LaMelo and like a national media and like a worldwide media about, you know, how poor of a player he is, how bad his production is. And then the second he might get traded, it's like any team would be lucky to have this guy on their team. It's like, you don't say that when he's in Charlotte. It's because you don't like him in Charlotte, because you can't cover him like you want to.
And this is the thing, like you talked about Houston and Orlando earlier, and I think they're the big rumored guys of like the playoff teams who need a creative scoring point guard. LaMelo Ball, perfect fit. Look at the identity of those teams. They are hard playing, like all effort, defense orientated. To take LaMelo Ball into that, they would have to compromise everything they are about. And are they willing to do that? Are they willing to say, yeah, we will have to compromise here, but we think the benefit on the offensive side could be so big that we're just willing to do it? Or will they say, no way that guy would fit into what we want to do here. It would undermine everything we've done to this point. And that's why I probably lean more towards the latter, like view on that. I don't know if those teams would be interested. I more kind of gravitate towards some of the more poorly run franchises in the league, like the Bulls, the Kings, the Pelicans, maybe even the Mavericks, like these teams who kind of are scratching, searching for something to cling on to an identity, to a way out. And LaMelo Ball would provide a level of optimism, relevance, production that all of those teams probably need. And all of those teams have apart from probably Dallas, have a kind of a good collection of assets who would be able to put together an interesting package.
I saw the Nets were also kind of a team that were like their executives were looking. They have a lot of assets and they're a bigger market, and they're kind of just they didn't trade away some of their guys you thought they were going to trade away, and they're performing better this year than I think people assumed they would. So that could be a spot you could see them go to as well. Any more thoughts on the LaMelo stuff here?
Well, I just think the last couple of things, really. I said this when it happened. The De'Aaron Fox trade, I think, is somewhat comparable to what a LaMelo Ball package could look like. All right. I think they are both borderline all-star players, depending if they're having a good year or a bad year. I think De'Aaron is probably viewed as a more impactful player, but at the time he only had, I think, maybe like 18 months left in his contract, and then he's going to get a big pay rise. So, but LaMelo Ball is going to be much cheaper for the reasons you've already mentioned. And De'Aaron Fox went for a good starter in Zach LaVine, 2 middling to late first-round picks, 5 seconds, and a dumped salary in Kevin Huerter. So they got off some bad salary. And for an example, I just think that's the closest, most realist type of deal that you could see for LaMelo Ball, something of that nature. I'm not expecting the here's Mikal Bridges where you get 6 first-round picks and good young, but I don't think you're getting that for LaMelo Ball, especially with the injury concerns. So I think that's the kind of last thing. If you're wanting to look around and see what these trade packages, start looking at packages that have equivalent value to something like that.
Yeah, definitely more younger assets, less draft capital, and stuff like that. That's when I did my mocks. That was what I'm more focused on, and maybe like a valuable pick here and there.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, James. His links will be in the description. He's one of the best content creators in the Hornets sphere, and you do it. How many hours ahead are you?
I'm 5.
That's got to be so tough. That's the games are tipping off at midnight when they're in Charlotte. So that's
right.
You're the man. So thank you so much for coming on. Go Hornets. And just enjoy basketball, everybody. Please. There's so much hate. Try to be more positive about basketball and the Hornets in general. So y'all have a good one. I'll see y'all.
Thanks all.